In a matter of hours, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will face tough questions on Capitol Hill. This from both Republicans and Democrats on the administration's turbulent withdrawal from Afghanistan. Some Republicans have called for Blinken's resignation. Along with that, the president's entire national security team. One of those congressmen joins me now, Representative Andy Barr of Kentucky, who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Jim, good to be with you.
We're aware of your criticism of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and also your demands for Blinken to resign as a result. He's testifying today. I wonder, what do you want to hear from him today? And would it be beneficial, in your point of view, to hear an acknowledgement of the failures here?
Well, it certainly would be, because in my view, this is the most humiliating, disastrous, catastrophic foreign policy failure of my lifetime. And I think this country is less safe today than we were on September 10th, 2001. It's telling that my 10-year-old daughter is last week and this week learning the history of 9/11, not having been alive when that happened. And yet it seems that our own president hasn't learned the lesson of 9/11. So we've got a lot of questions, and the American people deserve answers to those questions. One of those questions to this president and to the Secretary of State and his national security team is, who made the decision to abandon the Bagram Air Base before we extracted and evacuated all Americans, all of our allies, and our advanced military equipment before actually withdrawing from that country? We want to know a full accounting of the American citizens that have been left behind, and why the president on August 19th in an interview with George Stephanopoulos lied to the American people and committed to keeping U.S. troops in place until every American was evacuated. We know that's not true. And we have a lot of other questions as well about how this was so avoidable, and the intelligence was apparently either not delivered to the president or he ignored the intelligence when it was clear that their shift in policy to an unconditional retreat was going to fail.
Let me ask you a question, though. As you know, the previous president, Trump, committed to withdrawal, in fact, by an earlier date of May 1st. This was later than that original date, and a big portion of it was based, similar to this, on cooperation from the Taliban. Do you equally oppose President Trump's planned withdrawal as President Biden's, as it was carried out?
Well, let's try to be fair about this. This narrative that this was an identical strategy, or that President Biden inherited this strategy, is totally false. Look, this president has, in almost every case, abandoned the prior administration's policies, whether it be foreign or domestic policy. But the truth is, this was a shift in policy, and we knew it in April when Secretary Blinken announced it to the Congress. They were shifting from a conditions-based withdrawal that Secretary Esper, previous Secretary of Defense, announced in Doha in 2020, to a unconditional retreat by a date certain, 9/11, 2021. You know, at that time, I asked Secretary Blinken why September 11th. I can think of 364 better days to choose if you're going to choose a date certain. But secondly, what do they plan to do with Bagram Air Base? This was a total unconditional retreat. It was not based on conditions. And certainly this administration has shown an ability to shift away from the prior administration's policy. There was no commitment that they had to stick with whatever
Point of order there. You do know the previous administration released thousands of Taliban prisoners in advance as well. I do want to ask you, I want to test the question of troops, though, because
I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
It was part of the Doha agreement. But I don't want to look back. I do want to look forward, because I think that's where the American people are looking right now. It's about solutions at this point. Would you send troops back in now, both for a counter-terror presence, but also to ensure the safe evacuation of Americans? Or is it too late in your view?
No, it's not too late. And this is what any president should do. It's what this president should do, is to honor his own commitment to the Americans that he left behind enemy lines. He said on August 19th, we will stay until every American has been evacuated. He lied. The fact of the matter is that he abandoned Americans behind enemy lines, and now we have private American citizens, Afghanistan veterans, risking their lives without the support of the American military, going back into that failed state, trying to rescue Americans and our allies. And by the way, we're worse off now than we were before 9/11 because we've left, because this administration, through its incompetence, left $85 billion in advanced military weapon systems in the hands of the enemy. And now we once again have an incubator of terrorism in that failed state. And we have no control over the southern border of the United States. We have people on the terror watch list coming across
separate
the
issue for now,
Our homeland is in jeopardy.
Given your focus on Afghanistan, but your position on the Foreign Affairs Committee, so you want to send troops back in. How many troops and for how long?
Well, I asked, knowing full well that this strategy was failing. And by the way, it was a bipartisan concern in the early part of the summer. In May, we had in the House Foreign Affairs Committee the Ambassador Khalilzad in front of us, and I asked him, when this strategy fails, do you have the capability to go back into Afghanistan and retake Bagram Air Base once you give it away to the Taliban? And he deferred me to the Defense Department on that. So that's a question I have for Blinken. How are we going to retake Bagram? And by the way, Jim, if the grand strategy is to shift and pivot to China, which is a very important objective, why on earth would we just give away an air base in the only country with a physical border with the Chinese Communist Party? This makes absolutely no sense. We do not have to be nation building. This is not about an endless war. It's about the counterterrorism operation, preventing attack on a homeland like 9/11 again. And it's also about containing and countering the threat from China. And this president may think he's ended an endless war, but he has not ended any war. The Taliban and the terrorists that they are harboring are still at war with us.
Just quickly before you go, so you do support U.S. troops going back there for how long, right? Because the endless war campaign idea, right, was one of both President Biden and President Trump, repeated many times by President Trump. How long would you put U.S. troops back in Afghanistan?
You know, the situation that this president inherited from President Trump was 2,500 U.S. boots on the ground. That was less troops than we have currently in Spain. We've had 20,000 or more troops in Japan, in South Korea, and in Germany for over 75 years. This is about counterterrorism. It's about preventing a homeland, an attack on our homeland. It's about countering the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. It's not about nation building. But what this president has done through this disastrous foreign policy is leave Americans behind enemy lines and make the homeland less safe. You talk about a jailbreak of terrorists. It's not about the Doha Agreement. We saw thousands of hardened jihadists escape the Bagram prison. These are individuals who, because of President Obama's decision on Guantanamo, these individuals, Al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, the Haqqanis, they were all released because of the overrun of the Bagram Air Base, and now they are on the loose again.
I've been to that prison, but I will note that 5,000 were released under the Doha Agreement under the Trump administration. We can have a longer conversation. Congressman Andy Barr, we do appreciate the time you took this morning.
Thank you very much.